Here's a tip. Don't watch Isabeau's hunting scene while you're eating dinner, like I did. Reader and friend of the All Souls trilogy, this story can help release you. But before we find out what book only you can call up and talk about what I mean, be sure you're subscribed to this channel for future videos. So I believe that discovering a good story helps us live a good story. And so every week I pick out a theme from Discovery of Witches that we can talk about in greater depth so that you can bring these themes into your daily life. So today's theme is taken from episode 6. Do you believe that love conquers all? Do you believe that love can conquer all despite the barriers and despite the pushback and the challenges that are inevitable? I want to specifically focus on 3 scenes from episode 6. When Diana calls her aunts, she says to them, "I love Matthew. I can't help myself." I found Sarah's response interesting. She says that's impossible. Is she saying it's impossible for Diana to love Matthew? Well, that's not true. Is she saying that it's impossible for Diana to not be able to help herself? Maybe. Can we help it when we fall in love? But Diana says, for me, there is no choice. Do we have a choice to love? And then they talk about the congregation. And Diana says, the congregation does not get to choose who I love. Amen to that, right? But anyway, in that exchange, there's some questions that come up. Second scene is when Hamish and Matthew have a conversation. So what is talked about there? Hamish tells Matthew, why should they tell us who to love? Again, the congregation. While in the series, we haven't learned much about Matthew's life in the previous 1,500 years, we've gotten some hints. And we learn, as Matthew is a little more vulnerable in this scene, that he's worried about Diana finding out about his past. And he's able to admit that to Hamish. What does Hamish say back? Hamish says, I know about your past, and I love you anyway. So what's interesting about that is that Hamish is able to choose who he loves. So Hamish's advice to Matthew is, there are a lot of things in this life that we can control, but love is not one of them. Then there's the third scene that I picked out, which is that Isabeau is now on Team Diana. And what does she say to Diana? Matthew is her son. He comes first above all things. And now Diana is her daughter. And she basically blesses Diana. She talks briefly about her courage, and she talks about Diana's commitment to Matthew, and says, with your power, you can do this. The de Clermont women always have. Oh, I forgot to mention, I love when Isabeau says, your fight is my fight. Does love conquer all? I just went through 3 scenes that give us hints, okay? The aunts are not yet on board. Hamish is, but he wants to give Matthew some good advice. And they now have the support of Isabeau. We see Hamish choose love, but is love always a choice? Matthew and Diana do need to wrestle with the potential consequences of this life that they're beginning to lead, this place that they're beginning to go. This connection that they have with one another is inevitable, and yet it's their community that's really talking to them about the reality of it. But the community of the people that love Matthew and Diana are going to see this through with them. And that's very key. I would say that if we are in a relationship where we want to believe that love conquers all, and we don't have our community on our side, that's a red flag. We need the people that know us and love us to be able to rally around us for whatever the situation might be. So this week, consider, what price are you willing to pay if you want to believe that love conquers all? If you are in a situation like Matthew and Diana, where it seems like this is really going to come at a tremendous cost, is your community able to be there with you in it after voicing their concerns? If your community and the people who love you the most have voiced their concerns and are still not on board, that's something to pay attention to. But thankfully, that's not the case with Matthew and Diana. What are your thoughts? Share in the comments. But what matters to me the most is that you spend time with these kind of questions, that your love for this story informs your life, that you can say to yourself, I am living a good story. And one of the best ways to do that is to recognize what we love and the deeper themes about the stories that we love. Last week, I talked about the congregation and the role of, again, safety and community, and yet that community will inevitably shift. And how do we answer to the powers that be? So be sure you check that one out. You say that the world of the All Souls trilogy has changed your life. Well, I'm here to help you get specific. Make the magic of the All Souls trilogy more than a fantasy. What can your story be? Are you also an Outlander fan? I host a Facebook Live show, Your Outlander Story, every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, and would love for you to join me. Just type Jenny Wells Reads into your Facebook search bar. See you there.